you. Okay, so my name is Veronica. I'm working at marketing and business development for Jelurida. And Jelurida is a company incorporated by the core developers of two very old good blockchains, which are NXT and Ardor. And I'm going to talk today about the blockchain as a service term, because we are very used to hear this word blockchain. No. How many of you are related with blockchain? Okay. The rest of you are totally new, or do you know what is blockchain?
Yes, there is knowledge about blockchain, we just don't use it.
Okay. How many of you are familiar with this term, blockchain as a service? Okay. How many of you are familiar with software as a service? All of you. Okay, so we are going to make a connection today so we can learn what does it mean. What it is. So, today the blockchain as a service term, because it's a new thing and it's a very new sector, it's used in different ways by different organizations, meaning referring to different offerings. So we found that in Jelurida that we needed to bring some terminology to understand what we do differently every organization, and this is what this presentation is about. Indeed, about 3 weeks ago, Jelurida made a big press release announcing this redefinition of blockchain as a service. And we are going to talk about the software as a service as a reference. And you all know that it's about renting a software instead of purchasing a software. And this has many benefits, like saving costs, time, maintenance. You don't have to storage the software in your computer, and also you can access to it from any device. So multiple benefits. Example is like instead of buying Microsoft Word software, we can pay monthly for the usage of this software. Or for example, we have a small business and we need a really good specialized sales database, and we don't have time to build it, so then we can rent it. And also we can rent these tools that are necessary for my business instead of purchasing every tool. So in terms of market, software as a service remains a huge market, and it's expected to be 85 billion in 2019. And this is only one of the things that tell us that it's changing how companies are managed with these thanks to these softwares. So what do we have on the other side? Like what learnings we can have and we can bring to the blockchain as a service landscape. And we are going to present two categories that we have called cloud blockchain as a service versus full blockchain as a services. And now we want to see why. So a little bit of the definition of a blockchain. Here it's so a blockchain is a digital ledger. It's a database that needs to be stored somewhere. It's verifiable, incorruptible, and is also decentralized. And some of the key components of a blockchain to look at the blockchain as a service models are: we need storage, we need software, and we need a decentralized network to ensure the security of the network. So what we call cloud blockchain as a service are offering cloud storage and application softwares. And what we call it full blockchain as a service are adding this decentralized network. So now we are going to see what are the companies in each category. We have in the cloud blockchain as a service category, we have Amazon Web Services, Microsoft, IBM, Oracle. The full blockchain as a service category is now filled by Ardor. And we are also, I don't want to forget about other projects like SAP, Pruning, or Stratis, or other small companies that have white papers. But they have not launched yet. They are not working cloud, so we are not going to talk about them today, and I'm going to focus on those there. So Amazon Web Services provides a cloud service with frameworks, so people can easily deploy a blockchain in the stack. And the frameworks that they're using are Ethereum and Hyperledger Fabric. Microsoft and Pruning, they are also offering this for experimentation. They offer these cloud services and also frameworks. IBM Labix, same, is a cloud service with that simplifies your blockchain journey. And Oracle, also the same. So different words, same thing. They are offering cloud service with frameworks. And on the other side, other offers has a very different offering. And Ardor is a multi-chain platform that reduces cost of times to business when they want to deploy a product in the blockchain. And Ardor is based on child chains and a parent chain that is taking care of the security of the ecosystem. So we are going to see that because it's a very new architecture and it's a little bit complex, so we are going to take a little bit more time to see that. So in one side we have the parent chain architecture that uses the Ardor token, and it's a public network, uses the proof of stake consensus, and it's supported by 5 years of community. So it's a public decentralized network of nodes. In the other side, we have, this is how Ardor works. We have the Ardor child chains. Every child chain is a company. And every company has its own token. And they are all connected to the main parent chain through something we call bundlers. And a bundler is like a node that it's connecting the child chain with the parent chain in the way that it's taking the transaction fees from the company in the company tokens, and it's paying to the parent chain in the Ardor tokens. Okay? So the major consequence of this is that companies don't have to deploy their own network. They can have their products in their child chains, and they can rely the proof of stake consensus on the parent chain. Okay. Okay. So this is a very summary of what I just explained. Cloud and full blockchain as a service have storage and software. The difference here is that here the cloud blockchain as a services offer other frameworks, and Ardor uses the Ardor technology. And this is the difference. The cloud blockchain as a services don't provide the public network. That means that the company has to create a decentralized network of nodes. You understand that? Which is a lot of work for a company, which their core business is another one. the core business is not blockchain, the core business is what they do in their market. They solve a problem. Good. So, can we find real cases in both sides? Yes, we can find real cases. For example, I choose that example that shows that IBM was selected to build a consortium of banks. It is a little bit decentralized because there is no just one company taking care of this database, of this ledger, but they are 7. And they have to agree, the 7 of them, on the same way to maintain and validate this ledger. And blockchain adds trust between them. Yeah. And those are some examples, real applications. Early applications of this year was the first year of the product in the market. We have an application in finance and Ardor Euro-pegged, charging, another application sector by this company, meaning that it's tokenizing the properties, and other cases like liquid gamification. So up to now, we could say it's very early days, and we have to see how this will evolve during the time. But we could say that cloud blockchain as a services are good for those cases where several companies want to build trust among them, but it's at the end of all, it's a private network, and also they are good for experimentation. But a full blockchain as a service that is offering as well a public network, it's meant to help businesses that are pure decentralized and that they need this decentralization aspect in their business because it's part of their value proposition. How is supposed to enter here? Do you have any questions? Yes.
What sort of amount of nodes do you have on the parent chain?
Sorry? How much?
What sort of amount of nodes do you have on the?
Okay,
on
that's
the
variable. That's
other
variable.
chain?
It's very spread around the world. I don't have this number right now exactly, but it can be in the better moments was near to 1,000. You know?
Yeah, 1,000 was where we maxed out around, earlier this year, and right now, I want to say it's somewhere between 300 and 400, but I'm not entirely sure.
It's okay.
That's one thing that's actually interesting about Ardor is in the past few months, even with the market going down, it's been a lot of, there's a whole analysis on a lot of public blockchains and how they're centralized essentially to 3 points of parties controlling the network for the most part. And we've actually, for the last few months, Ardor has been the only one that I've been able to find that actually has 4, so it's a little bit more, in order to reach 50% of the network, it actually requires 4 different pools of people to come together to be able to get even close to half of the network value to launch something like a 51% attack or something. So it's a lot actually more secure than proof of work in many ways, assuming you keep this decentralization. So, yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about some industry problems and how these are related to the blockchain as a service model. So the first problem is energy waste. You know, you have heard probably that the energy wasted by the mining activity of Bitcoin is not sustainable at all for our planet. And if we are looking for mass adoption of these businesses, that will be a really huge problem. This is how a mining facility looks in China, but there are also in Sweden and also in Canada. The solution of that is to find other consensus that they are not depending on the hardware, and we don't have to spend that much on the electricity. And in this case, the cloud blockchain as a service that uses Hyperledger Fabric are energy efficiency, and also Ardor is using the proof of stake consensus that depends on the stake of the node and not on the hardware. Problem number 2 is the bloat problem. So you know, maybe you have heard also about this, the size of the blockchain it's increasing exponentially, and this is a problem because at some point it's a huge database, and when we look at those models where you have also to pay the storage as a service, you have to pay for that size. So in these regards, Ardor offers a solution for the bloat problem because its new architecture in multi-chain, it allows Ardor to prune data, certain data, regularly. So prune data is like cleaning some data from the database in a regular basis, like for example every month. This is a feature that is already developed by our team, and it's not released yet, but inside it's already working. And it's one of the most advanced solutions right now to this problem. Ethereum is working on Plasma, and they also are working on this new multi-chain architecture, but it's only one white paper and it's not launched yet. Also, this is another problem of the industry because it's very early days. It's very difficult to find engineers, experienced engineers in these new languages. So when you are talking about languages like Solidity, it's difficult to find experienced people. They have the code, they have to be tested, and then we have Composer plus an open IPA in Hyperledger, and Ardor offers is built on Java, and it also offers an open IPA. So in terms of finding developers, it's easier to find developers on Java, and it's also a common language for companies. So we're looking forward to seeing how this sector is growing and to see more applications on this sector. I think it's very early days, but yeah, it's very exciting how we are breaking this, the software as a service model to the blockchain, and I believe there's a lot to do right now, but we believe that Ardor is already offering a real value proposition to this business. So yeah, this is my contact. Feel free to write me a line if you want to anything.
And what are the consequences of blockchain bloating? Does it make it more slow, more inefficient?
Yeah, basically the size of the blockchain is that it's so big, and it becomes difficult to work with it. And so one of the characteristics is that because a blockchain is decentralized, every node saves a copy of the same blockchain. So this gets really difficult to work with.
There's actually another point too, which is that within the whole blockchain space, having a multi-chain platform is very new. It's actually, as far as I'm aware, it's the first one to come out in January this year. And what that allows is that when there's a lot of bloat on the Ethereum network, for example, that's going to impact your transaction fee, your gas, in order to execute that contract. And so business that puts this smart contract on the blockchain, suddenly when they're used to having a monthly projection of what they're going to spend on transactions, suddenly it goes out the window because, I don't know, crypto kitties, people start buying lots of these digital kitties online, and your your real business contract is being kind of prevented from being validated because these other random transactions are in your way. And so by separating them into separate child chains, we're able to sort of offload some of that as well to those different chains. So that this whole bundling process is going to open up a lot of interesting possibilities that I'll touch on a little bit more once we have a more concrete example in front of us.
More easily, it's a kind of a fight that your transaction goes through if many transactions are on the blockchain. To get your transaction through, you're set the amount you're ready to pay for the transaction. Take a bus in Malta, and it costs €1.20 for a ride for 2 hours, and the bus is always stuck. And then you have the opportunity to say to the bus driver, I like to pay €5, that I have my fixed seat in the bus. Then a lot of people pay €5. Then the next people come and pay €10. And so we, the users that use the blockchain systems, have a fight for the price, how much we are ready to pay to get the transaction. And that is very easily and metaphorically explained why it is really important to work on those issues. Because if a small thing like CryptoKitties can prevent company applications from companies that spend millions of euros to build the applications to pass through. For example, you make a loyalty program for Costa Coffee, and then the clients don't get their points because someone was buying a CryptoKitty at the same time. That's not a good thing for Costa Coffee. And they have to spend more money so that the clients get the loyalty points, for example. Or banks want to send huge amount of money from one account to another, and they have to pay more and more to get the transaction through. And those guys from NXT are really working hard to fix these issues, and that is why I, as a researcher, like the ideas they are offering.
Okay, so.
Thank you. So thanks, Veronica. Alright, so as Veronica said, I'm Skylar, and I'm helping Jelurida right now with a lot of their sort of educational materials around the platform and some of the outreach and community building. So I'm going to try and take a little bit of this conversation and make it a little bit more real with a demo of a use case. So I'll try and get through 3 different things. First will be just some context by doing a basic tour of this Ardor parent chain and seeing what does this parent chain even look like, what can it do. Then we're going to move into one of these child chains that has these more complex transactions built into it. And what we're going to do on that child chain, it's the Euro-pegged child chain that was mentioned just a few moments ago. We're going to issue a new digital monetary supply that's actually backed by a reserve of these euros. We're going to do it in like 15 minutes or something. Then we're going to learn how we would set up an exchange so that users could buy and sell this new monetary supply that's backed by digital euros. And if we have time, I'll try and go through some cool new features like transaction vouchers that let us eliminate wire fraud, basically eliminate the issue of sending funds to the wrong address in the blockchain since things are immutable and it's really easy to make mistakes that you can't undo. We've got a feature built in that allows us to avoid that, but it's a few extra steps, so I may not include that in this particular presentation. Anyways, so as we're all aware at this point, we've got the parent chain that's securing the child chains. And yeah, let's get into the parent chain. So on the screen here, I can show you what it looks like to log in, but it's really pretty straightforward. I'll start here now. I'm going to use the Testnet today. You know the blockchain that your passphrase is very important. You don't share your passphrase because people can steal your money. You're going to see my passphrase for the Testnet on the screen because I've got to go back and forth between a few different accounts. Just know it's all fake money on here, so gotcha. Anyways, let's see. We've got the Ardor parent chain here, which is pretty lean and doesn't have a whole lot to it at this point, right? We see we've got our balance, the most recent block in the blockchain, these 2 different kind of navigation areas that are pretty straightforward. We've got our public address. We've got that our friends would send funds to or that we would send funds to from an exchange, fund this account. We've got our actual balance. Unfortunately, it looks like we're, for some reason, not connected to the internet. I'll need to let that connect. So this should be connected once we get the Wi-Fi up. And then we have the forging.
You have to open a browser.
You have to open a browser and accept. Is the one that's in the
Just refresh it and then click again on OK.
Looks like it's on now.
It's on now. Oh, it's connected, super.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Great. So throughout this whole process of proof of stake, in order to secure the network, that's what this forging icon is. If you have 1,000 Ardor, you can participate in the process of securing the Ardor network and all the transactions occurring across the child chains. And what happens here is if you're forging, you can actually receive the transaction fees from other users on the blockchain. So if you forge the next block, you're going to receive the transaction fees from that transaction. And so if we wanted to turn this on, that's pretty simple. We would just come on over here and enter our passphrase and enter it, and we would be good to go. I can do that if you'd like to just see it very quickly, but not a whole lot changes.
Maybe to explain proof of stake, if this example, there's a total amount of 100 million coins generated at the beginning when the network has started on the 1st of January 2018. And your stake is the number of Ardor you possess out of the 100 million. And this also is the chance that you have to actually be the one finding a block and getting the reward.
Yeah. And so what we're doing here is setting up this process that we can start participating in the forging. And we try to make it pretty easy. That's it. You're participating now. You're part of the public network that's helping validate transactions. Now, we want to turn it off and stop participating for some reason or another. It's the same thing. It, for some reason, just went away. The internet connection is a little funny right now. But,
You just update it.
yeah. Anyways, we'll move on. So then we've got the left side column. The coin exchange is pretty cool. This is a decentralized exchange built in. So any new child chain that's built in the platform can interact with all the other ones. So that's another huge benefit here of the Ardor platform, since each of these child chains are linked to that parent chain. We're not building a bunch of, we're not taking all these cloud blockchains, copy and pasting them, and then customizing our own thing, and then having that new thing maybe not talk to all the other people who copied that same blockchain template. So that's the risk you run when you're using these cloud blockchain as a service platforms. All these consortiums could build their own things, and then none of these things could talk to each other. And so that's the feature we need to avoid. And so that's where Ardor comes in, where you want your child chain, which is customized with these built-in features, and it's secured by the decentralized network. You can talk to all the other child chains. So it's a big vision moving forward to be a full ecosystem of blockchains. Now, basically, at this point, that's it for the parent chain. Like I said before, it's not meant to have a lot of features on it. It's the lean kind of securing machine part of this whole operation. So it's not meant to have fancy transaction features built into it. It's really serving its purpose. So why don't we take a look at something a little bit more interesting and move on over to the Euro-pegged child chain, where I'll be doing most of the demo from this point forward. Suddenly the screen updated, and we have a whole lot more information available. We've got all of these other balances. This left-hand side menu has suddenly a bunch of new features, like that data cloud that Veronica was mentioning before, or the ability to issue new digital assets, monetary supplies, or a new digital voting system. So all of this is available out of the box when you have a new child chain, but there might be some features you don't want on a child chain. So Ignis, which I'm not using right now, but Ignis, if you hear this thrown around, was the first child chain on Ardor. And this has all the features built into it, and it's permissionless. So anybody can use it. It's a public network. You can launch tokens. You can do all of this stuff on that platform. You can have private transactions. But for example, when we're on this Ardor Euro-pegged child chain, we can't do private transactions anymore because there's obviously regulatory issues that become a problem if we start having private transactions with real currency like that. So that's sort of the difference here, is that Ignis will, moving forward, always be permissionless, will always have the new features put into it, whereas every business that comes with their own child chain will be kind of customizing from that toolbox. Ardor Euro-pegged has most of the features enabled though, so this is going to be a good way to understand things. So I'm not going to go through everything here. I'm going to kind of move straight into things because it's just too much for me to do a full download of all of this. So I think it's easier to just really use this one example today of this digital monetary supply. And so what is the use case of what I'm doing right now? Why would I do this anyways? Well, one example is like rewards point programs. We have travel rewards, flight programs, any of this like credit card programs where you have these purchase erasers, these points that have a dollar value at the end of the day that you're able to cash out for. That's what we're going to, this is essentially what you're building here. It's a euro-backed new digital currency that is set with a certain reserve of euros behind it. But then we're going to allow users to cash that out for the euros that back it so that they can operate with the other businesses on the Ardor platform, since this euro child chain can talk to all of the other child chains. So now suddenly this rewards program can cash out and go pay rent with Dominion, potentially. So that's a big deal. Another way we apply this is gaming. Games have tokens and all types of coins. I know a lot of developers make money off of the fact that they have their proprietary digital coin in their game and you have to buy into it and can't buy out, or cash out rather, but I could imagine there might be a certain user base or a certain market for game developers that are looking to have this sort of integrated ecosystem of currencies that can all be used against one another. So let's make it real for a moment and set up this currency. There'll be a few points throughout this that I'll kind of pass over, for example, transaction fees, and I'll explain that more at the end, just so we can feel the full process without me stopping every 5 seconds. So, let's get started. Today, I'm going to name this new currency, get suggestions from the crowd if you'd like to have a specific name. Anyone got up to 10 characters?
MITAcoin.
Arcade coin, MITAcoin.
Someone proposed the MITAcoin.
MITAcoin, okay. All right, and the currency symbol is going to be MITA-C. The description is that this will be a euro-pegged coin.
You can make a more easily pegged MITAcoin. This was the currency they had in Malta before the euro.
Well, we don't have a literary-pegged child chain, so. But anyways, so we've got pretty basic stuff there. Current description. Basically, the information we're entering here is going to be immutable. It's not going to be able to be changed. So we need to make sure that if there's like if we put a description here, we put our website or something, make sure it's a link that's always going to be good, or that when you set up your new website, you redirect, because we can't change any of this later. The type, there's all these types. I'm going to select a bunch of them, and I'll explain why I'm selecting each one as I get through this whole process. All right. Cool. So, what do all these things mean, and how would you follow along with me if you can't remember everything I'm talking about? Well, first I'm going to show you quickly the website will load correctly. Here we go. This is where I would say ardordocs.jelurida.com is where I refer to for this type of stuff. We have a cool thing here with all the features, all the APIs, everything's documented. And if you want to understand what all the options are of this monetary supply, you can come on in here and we've got it all laid out. So you can come in and learn what are each of these options, what are each of the, let's get down to the important part, the currency types. Why am I selecting each of these boxes? You can come down and sit and take your time reading through each of these different things, but I'll try to summarize it for you right now. So what we have is exchangeable, so it can be exchanged basically. We can have other users of this coin exchange with one another, and that's pretty straightforward. Controllable, I'm not going to do this, but it could be useful. Let's say if you make a currency controllable, it means only the person issuing it and the person receiving it can send it between one another. It's not an open ecosystem. It's a kind of one road that goes back and forth. The next is reservable. This means I'm going to set some of these, the child chain I'm on, the Euro tokens, I'm going to have some of these held as a reserve to back the value of this new digital monetary supply. Next, claimable. I want people to actually be able to then claim that value I've set behind these new tokens, right? They should be able to cash out these new monetary supplies and be able to get that 5 euro cents or whatever that value is behind it. Supply of the tokens over time without an energy-intensive process, but I'm not going to worry about that. It's not as relevant for this, so it gets a little too complicated. Non-shuffleable, I'm checking this box, but it's more of a user interface thing because like I said a moment ago, on the Euro child chain, you can't send private transactions anyways, but just because the option's here and I like to be real safe about things, I'm checking it. And that's it for the main kind of customizations around this currency. So I'm setting right now a value of 1 euro cent per new token, and I'm going to create 10,000 of these MITAcoins. Which would mean my reserve is how much?
100 euro.
Perfect. Yeah, there we go. Just seeing if people are paying attention. Cool. So then what we're going to do is we have to set a height by which we'll have the funds raised to be able to launch this currency. So this introduces a whole other use case, even as I'm just setting it up. If we fail to raise the reserve for this currency before this deadline I'm about to set, then it doesn't get created, which is cool for fundraising and all types of different ideas. So I am going to set this, let's say 1.9 should be safe, and I'll set it a few minutes in the future, and I may have to wait on the blockchain to update. Passphrase. Good call. I did not set the decimal places. How many decimals do you want this currency to be able to trade? Yeah, 2. Yeah, it's kind of. Alright, so now we see here this unconfirmed transaction box. We see 1. The block time at the moment is about a minute, so we'll wait for this to be included, and then we'll see the new monetary supply show up. I will give a bit of a briefing on the whole block time and why that matters and how that scales over time. I can try to get into that now. I'll wait for this. So basically, the way this network is being designed is that there's 2 ways you can approach scalability. There's one, which we've seen a lot of competitors take in the space, like, for example, you may have heard AEUR in the last year. They were on the John Oliver show and that type of stuff. And they're talking about how fast their blockchain is. But the reality is, you and I can't even download their blockchain because the trade-off they've made is that blockchain is massive. It's growing just at an infinitely exponential rate, whereas Ardor is already a year old, and you can resynchronize your node in like less than a day. So these other platforms are saying, I'll speed up the block time to make the experience feel faster, when in reality, they're centralizing the network with the original nodes because those are the only nodes that can store that history. No one else can catch up that fast. So we're taking the approach of being able to, like Veronica alluded to before, prune transactions that are unnecessary. We've got the multi-chain architecture, and we're taking a more comprehensive approach so that then once we decide to speed up the block times, our blockchain doesn't become massive and it's not impossible for new businesses to join, since the whole point is for new businesses to be able to launch a child chain. So that's why, I don't know, for me, the block time thing can sometimes be a little bit of a headache because not everybody kind of likes fast things, and that seems like it's the answer sometimes. But in this case, I don't think it is. So now we need to set the reserve. We already issued the currency, we set this thing up, and now we need to back it with the euros that are going to support it. And this is also a really easy process. I've already got on my testnet account a bunch of euros, so I'm able to take care of this quite easily. I'm going to say, let's just pay to get the full supply set up. this is another transaction that will take a moment. So, transaction fees are another thing we could talk about, but I'll just take a moment and pause. How's everybody feeling so far? Is there anything I could clarify before taking next steps? Because we're really close to being done, actually. We've already backed the currency and made it, so.
When you mentioned the pruning,
So the pruning, yeah.
how would you decide which transactions you can prune and those you don't?
Yeah, good question. So what happens is that a cryptographic hash of that transaction remains. So there's still a way that you can verify that, for example, a document or a transaction occurred with that hash, but you're not going to find the full transaction information on the blockchain anymore. What is envisioned as this scales, and it's possible, but it's not necessary yet, are setting up these archival nodes that then do store the full history of everything. So businesses, for example, could set up their own archival nodes so that those transactions that are all pruned are still living on their archival node. So it's really a full life cycle sort of approach, but it's just the blockchain's not big enough to need those nodes yet. Yeah. So now we go over to sometimes it takes an extra minute or two. Yeah, it worked. It's just so. So we saw our balance was reduced another 100, but it's not go up. It's reserve increase is what that's showing up as with our fees here. So I guess I'll pause and try to talk about fees then for a moment while this all updates. Fees on the Ardor platform. Every time I've been submitting these things, I've been hitting calculate minimum fee and just moving on like it doesn't matter. There's an implication of that, obviously, because every time I'm moving this monetary supply, I'm using euros to pay the transaction fees. If I had users of my game, they're not going to have these euro-pegged things. They're only going to have this new digital monetary supply. So we need to basically find a way of connecting our users then without requiring them to hold these other tokens. And we can do that. We have these bundlers, and they can be customized. We have 5 templates already. So you could set up a bundler template that says, I only want to pay to validate transactions involving my monetary supply. And so you could be one of 10 bundlers on the Euro network, but your bundler is only going to be monitoring for transactions involving your monetary supply, and you'll only pay for those. And so that's our vision of how you fix that. It really allows businesses to sort of hedge as well throughout the month and know what your transaction fees are expected to be depending on your user base and growth each month. So you can buy the amount of Ardor you need for your transaction fees essentially ahead of time to some extent and know what the full financials are for your app that month, which is kind of nice. Anyways, that's sort of the key point there, though, is that you can take advantage of these general bundlers and require your users to have the euros to pay the transaction fees, or your business finds a way that its revenue stream makes sense to sponsor those fees for your users. Maybe you have to pay for your app or something, or maybe you have ads in your app, or I don't know. I'll leave that to real game designers, not me. Then, let's see what other points are worth mentioning before moving on. We should be good to set up the exchange now, I think. And I'm just going to go ahead. It's still not set up. And like any new technology, we're on Testnet. We've always got to sometimes hit the button twice or something. It's just what happens with this stuff. So that's pretty typical at the moment with this crypto. but it's still not showing. All right, I'm gonna try and set the reserve again. Maybe the transaction didn't work. Yeah, it's catching it. It's saying it is active, but for some reason the interface. There it is. Haha. Cool. All right, so we've got our MITAcoin here. This is all the other ones I've messed around with. We are going to want to set these up. Since we hold the full supply, we want to offer these up on the exchange here for other users to buy. This is creating our initial listing. I haven't gone through and done all the math on this, so we'll just set basic numbers. Say we'll let people buy at least one, buy up to 100 units. I don't know. I'm just going to make all of this the same, just so we can see how this changes the interface. I know mathematically that doesn't make sense for buying and selling. I'm just filling it out.
So now you just make one transaction, one.
So I didn't make, what I just created now was the actual exchange listing itself. So I said, okay, I have all these coins, I've made them. Now when I go to the exchange, before when we were just there, I moved too fast and I should have slowed down a little bit. But the current, I would have said that there wouldn't have been, this is still waiting on the unconfirmed. This is good. You see there's nothing here on the screen, right? Let's wait until that one goes away. And then I'll come back to this and you'll see how it changes. Alright, let's see. I'm going to talk through another point here. I'm only have time. So let's say, for example, you start a coin on here and you decide this is going really well and you want to move it into your own child chain for some reason. Maybe backing it by euros is starting not to make sense for some reason or another. There's systems actually already built in place for us to be able to migrate things to their own child chain. So for example, Terrific that was mentioned earlier, I think they're going to be doing a lot of their fundraising on the Ignis, the public permissionless child chain, and then they're going to, based on the success of that, launch their own child chain. So it'll be, yeah, you can kind of combine these systems to initially test your ideas. Now we see that this transaction's gone through, and we come here and we see now if another user were to log in and come, they could start purchasing these or selling back or whatever the case may be. So that's it. We just created a digital currency that's backed by a euro that you can use and claim against the euro itself. We can go back over to our currencies page, and if you wanted to be claiming it, that's this claim process here. I can transfer it more securely to individuals using that transaction voucher process I mentioned earlier. But that was sort of what I hoped to be able to get through at this point. And I'm happy to take some questions, or we can push it and try and cover more stuff. But I'll leave it kind of open to you and whatever wants.
Where is the real money?
Where? What is the real money? Good
When
question.
does it come in?
Sure. So the Euro-pegged child chain is backed by Ardor and Mr. Tango Bank. So there is an actual bank in Lithuania that has a relationship with Ardor, which is a company, and they have actual euro deposits at Mr. Tango Bank.
So my account at Ardor is connected to that bank. How would they know that I have 10,000 in my account?
So there's a difference between the actual euros that are in your account and these euros in the sense that when we put them into the account with Mr. Tango Bank, every euro in the system has to have a one-to-one relationship. So at the moment there's like 30,000 AEUR Euros available in the ecosystem because there have been 30,000 euros worth of deposits. And then those users can move their funds into the ecosystem and trade it however they want. It's on Ardor Gates' own tracking mechanism to decide that ownership, and if you cash out, how everything. It's not like your bank account with Mr. Tango is this. It's you're putting your money there, it's kind of locking it up there, and then saying, here's your new representation in the Ardor platform.
basically you lock a certain amount of money there, and you get a unique code. That unique code you redeem at your own Ardor node, and then your tokens that represent the locked up euros, the same amount, are generated on your node.
So the first row is still open a bank account?
Not open at the bank account, especially that you can send from your account money there, and they lock it up and secure it for you. And so, of course, at least we again have to trust a single entity, which is a bank in another country. So for me, for the future, to make it happen, it needs to be a consortium of banks in each EU country at least that work together again. But it's a first approach to finally have the proof that a single person in the European Union locked up and secured a certain amount of euros, and then you generate your euros.
How do you know the rate of exchange? Like €1 equals one Bitcoin?
Whoa, no. Not one Bitcoin. But yeah, so 1-to-1. So that's the thing that we hear all the news right now, like these stable coins, and people are taking really intense, crazy approaches to how they're trying to create these things in the cryptocurrency space. And we're kind of saying, we're not so worried about that right now. Let's do it old school and actually back it 1-to-1 with this bank relationship, where the funds have to come in order for it to
At
be.
the moment there's this big discussion, there's a stable coin. Stable coin means it should be the equivalent to €1. It's called the data. And the big exchanges can generate their own data coins. And we have to believe then that these coins the exchanges generated are backed by $1 real US in that particular case. And at the moment there's this kind of scandal that we don't really know if the exchanges actually have the money or if they got the money from the users, but then they spend it on Lamborghinis and helicopters, or went off with the money, we don't know. And here, at least, it's a licensed bank in the European Union behind it, and so it's the trust that the real euro is behind it. It's higher than if some exchange operated by startup founders can just maybe make up that.
They get more than the government is taking care of it, so like the new Swiss bank.
Yeah, I mean, legal frameworks can do something with some of this, but a lot of it is just a matter of the approach as well. I mean, we get some slack for this because people think, oh, this makes it scale more slowly, but it's, I think, more responsible for how volatile the whole market is. Right.
So if I had to use this, I would need to transfer some money to this Tango Bank in the European Union country. And the equivalent of the amount being transferred is being represented here.
Yes, the equivalent of the amount that you transfer and then tell them to hold almost like an escrow for this, yes.
And then you can
exchange. And then you can cash back out and say, okay, I've been in Ardor. I can take my Ardor, which, because I don't have very much, and I would be able to cash out for my $200 that I have. But if you wanted to cash out $1 million, like I said, there's only 30,000 euros in this right now, so you're not going to be able to do that. And so that's where we get a lot of users who are like, well, I made it big last December, I'm not going to use this platform, and that's okay, too bad, that's not for that use case. But for moving forward, I think we need to see more competition to make the on-ramp a little bit easier and to reduce some of the fees around transferring from the bank into the ecosystem and things like that, because it's a 1-to-1 Euro-peg, but you're paying fee, at least with the bank initially, to get this thing all set up. So I mean, some amount of your money you're initially putting in is being spent. So that's something people complain about. But again, like this is really proving the concept that this can be done on the blockchain and that it can be done even better. To be honest, that's the first chance. And it's also a matter of saying a lot of places have these stable coins that we're all worried about. And this is a stable coin that can do things. And it's not just like going and buying a tether or something on an exchange and thinking, I don't know how much of a US dollar this is. We can actually like, build stuff with this and use it for other purposes. Yeah.
Once you have the money transferred and you are using the system, you can exchange with others within this system, right?
Correct. Yeah.
You cannot go, this is not linked to other systems.
So the way that it would work, it's not direct, well, actually, kind of. I'm on a testnet, so we won't see it here, but at the beginning of this month, the wallet integrated Changely. I'm not sure if you're familiar with. They're just an instant exchange website. So we don't have atomic swaps. I don't want to get too complicated with terminology. But basically, if you want to move out of the Ardor ecosystem, you have to use a third-party service to then convert to something like Ethereum or Bitcoin. But we have that third-party service actually built directly into this wallet. So if I were not on Testnet, I would actually be able to trade directly with my Ardor and Ignis. Not these Euro coins though. The Ardor and Ignis are listed in the Changely wallet exchange, but these Euros are really only here for now. But yes, our platform, it's pretty integrated for the most part. So all the child chains can talk to each other, and there's an easy plugin to take it out if you want.
Coming back to the bloating issue.
So yeah.
Yeah, I understand correctly, there's a process where records will be archived.
Yes.
Yeah. And then the core data is held locally by the owner of the data.
The core.
But the transaction is archived.
So the archival node would include the full transaction itself. So we're not. Think of it like this: when you send a transaction with your bank, you get a confirmation number, and we're basically going to make sure that that confirmation number is always able to be referenced on the blockchain. It's only if you want to take that confirmation number and then open it up and see all the details within it, that then we have to go to one of these, in theory, archival nodes. And so the transfer that we would be looking at would be from the bank's or from that business's own books to see what. Because I'm kind of confused what the question is. Maybe. I'm going in a circle. I'm
Two poses. One of the one relates to data protection.
Okay, so this is about
that
GDPR.
one firstly is the immutability that currently data protection and immutability are not going so hand in hand. There's a lot debated about it.
Okay.
So is one solving data protection what is moving the transaction details, possibly with the business data is being held into a localized repository of the owner? Is that what it's
Centralized, you mean?
And what is happening to the immutability of the details of the transaction?
So the immutability of the details, that just has to do with the fact that we already have that cryptographic hash of that transaction. So you can't change that. We would have to. It wouldn't have happened in the first place if we could change it. So then the next question is what happens with, I guess, user data and that type of stuff if it's, I'm assuming this is GDPR related. So this is basically a combination of and designing it intelligently, really, and ensuring that certain networks are private. So we can limit access to, for example, certain functionalities by issuing assets to an individual or issuing a monetary supply to an individual and saying, now whoever has that asset has special abilities based on my whatever my child chain is or my business operation is. I'm setting users who hold these coins get to do certain things. So it becomes a matter of design at that point. But the fact of the matter is, I would say that it would appear that there are ways of working with the system that aren't entirely against everything that GDPR is trying to do. I'm just not a lawyer on that, so I don't want to give you specifics on it, but I would say from my perspective, seeing the different tools that are there, it would seem that you could figure out something. But again, I'm not going to put myself in the legal.
I mean,
it's a big topic.
lines of thinking are these rather than change the way of thinking in terms of not actually totally deleting the transaction of details, but controlling the accessibility to it. So not of the technical things, the legal convincing each other is the debate. So that is the line of thinking that no, what made it very difficult to get to or impossible to get to simple unsettling cases, then that should comply.
Right, but then we can also think about, if there are certain situations where we're going to be more concerned about privacy and data, like there is the ability to have private transactions on here. the reason that for the Eurocoin that doesn't exist is because that is regulatory, it's an actual currency. But if we're talking about health data, or if we're talking about something else, or a game or something, there may be ways that we can think of designing things where we have this tokenization and private transactions that somehow are combined to then be able to secure that data. Again, I see a lot of tools in place to be able to manage that stuff, but it's all new, and I can't say that I've worked with a business that's been like doing that directly, so I don't want to get too specific. Yeah. Yeah.
With regards to the archive, so it's like the archive of my company, which contains the transactions that are of interest to me, to leave them to prove maybe in the future, to prove that I paid your company, for example. Do I have the same redundancy, or do I have the same peace of mind, or do I need to keep backup, and am I responsible for maintaining that archive or doing the backups, or is it within the same ecosystem of the other blockchain?
So it would mean setting up a separate node to run as an archival node. So it would be kind of setting up a second wallet maybe on another computer and having that run as your archival node or something. Again, these are pretty new and we haven't actually had to use these too much yet. So this is like thinking a few years out because we're not at that scale yet. So I could say something now, but a lot of the design we're focusing on right now is that we can actually handle the amount of transactions and the types of transactions and the types of processes. And then we can kind of get to more of that, ensuring the tools are there and then kind of tweaking them to do what they need to. So yeah, I think the archival nodes are something where there will be more and more discussion on those as different use cases by different businesses come up of how we need to secure that data. So for now, I can say that it's stored on a separate node. What limiting access to that looks like, what any of that looks like, it's, I think, a work in progress, just to be honest. But if you have other inputs, feel free, but that's my understanding so far.
You mentioned the $30,000 of which you requested for now. So the system is like, so it's still in progress, you're just, for now, you're testing with this amount, and in the future maybe it will be.
So it's open, so anybody can be putting more money in and bringing more money into the ecosystem. It's just that the founding company, Ardor Gate, and then whatever the initial user base is so far, that's just what the balance happens to be. I think they had set the maximum, I want to say it's like set at 10 million for now, and then they have to readdress regulatory things once it goes beyond that. So for now, it's at 30,000 with a max supply at around 10 million, and then regulatory stuff comes in with it being a small bank and everything. So, yeah, that's.
For me, euro charging is just one small thing of what Ardor itself can offer. For me, the most important part is actually the ETH charging and creating utility tokens there, fully controllable, and that you can actually implement in your applications to your networks. For example, your points and the gamification, your rewards, or whatever information you like to store on that particular tokens. So I think that's for the demonstration, one of the most important parts and use cases actually for the system.
And at least here, I mean, I just think it'll be cool once we see more people starting to test on this and seeing how different businesses start to interact with each other and different partnerships that start to form to bring an ecosystem in. Because once you have a couple of games, and a couple of new rewards program, maybe this mini real estate platform, and even just having the euros there, that we can start to figure out new partnerships with businesses that might accept points because they have real euro backing, and we can start to do a lot more with that and actually cash out the points for real euros, and it's not controlled by some kind of credit card company or something. They can click the button that claims their euros once they're ready to be done. So yeah, I think it could be really interesting to see this combined with rewards programs and everything else I mentioned at the beginning, because it can all start talking to each other. And it's not just one game anymore with their own token, it's a game that can interact with everything. But, yeah. Any other general questions? I don't know what time is looking like. If I can keep going if you
You
want.
can keep going as long as you like to keep it going. So if you say you have to go back to your work desk, feel free to tell us.
Any more questions? How do you see the applications are listed now? Fields? Any input?
Say, is this for the group here? Yeah, it's like, is this a relevant type of use case for everyone here? Does it help make any of it more clear, or did it take the initial conversation and you're still confused?
If I may, so if I have a business and I want to have customers paying me using virtual currencies, I would need to create an account on the system. And then all my customers would need to join in and trade with my coin. So I have to create my own coin for my business, and I will ask customers to transfer money to this bank and then exchange the transaction on the system. How exactly is? Because I cannot see the way customers would be exchanging coins with my company. Do they
Well,
have
I'm
to?
thinking more like with my credit card company, I don't send them my points, I spend my money and I use it. So they're playing your game and they're earning your coins. To me, if we're gamifying this stuff, we want to basically make it so that the users don't even know that the blockchain's operating in the background. And that's really the end goal here. So they shouldn't even realize that there are these other. They shouldn't have to interact with that at all. The only thing they should have to do at the end of the day is claim those coins if they want to. I don't see, I agree that if the idea were somehow for users to start to pay into the value of the coins themselves, that gets kind of weird, it doesn't make sense. But if you're paying for the app up front, and let's say every user when they start out they're a new player of the game, everybody gets 50 coins, that's worth 5 cents, but I charge them $1 for the app. So I'm only giving them 5 cents of coins in the game, but I charge them $1 for the app, and then I average out what the transaction fees might be, and I put an advertisement in the game, and now suddenly things make sense, I'm making money, and I can make the reserve. So the goal would really be for the company to be the one that's envisioning, because this is your company's financials for the month, in the end is what that is amounting to. You don't want to leave that to the people too much, otherwise there's a lot of risk involved. So it's a matter of just designing things where we get them into the platform, and then they don't even have to know what's happening behind it.
That's interesting.